Georgia Bird's life takes an unexpected turn in this film when, instead of confessing her love to her secret crush, she receives a death sentence from her doctor. This shocking news forces Georgia to evaluate her subdued lifestyle and the value of time. In Last Holiday, Georgia leads a modest, unexciting life. She limits herself in many aspects, including romance. One of her favorite pastimes is watching cooking shows and trying out the recipes, which she never eats for fear of gaining weight. Instead, she photographs the dishes and stores them in her book of possibilities. Georgia is employed at a department store, where she constantly endures the dissatisfaction of her boss, who relishes in nitpicking her work. However, one bright spot at her workplace is the presence of her crush, Sean Williams, who, unbeknownst to her, also has feelings for her. During a store event, her boss, Damien, criticizes her for giving food to the elderly, insisting that the store isn't a charity. Despite Georgia's explanation about the store's long-standing tradition, Damien dismisses her, leaving her with a magazine to read. Shortly after Damien departs, Sean appears, drawn by the delicious smell of Georgia's cooking. He savors a bite, praising her culinary skills and reminiscing about his mother's cooking. As he attempts to confess his feelings to Georgia, a nervous Georgia accidentally knocks her fork off the counter. In the process of picking it up, she hits her head on an overhead cabinet, temporarily losing consciousness. Concerned for Georgia's well-being, Sean rushes her to the store's clinic. Damien follows, worried about the medical expenses the store might incur for Georgia's treatment. During her examination, Georgia is daydreaming about Sean and fails to respond to the doctor's tests, leading him to recommend a CT scan. The results reveal a terminal illness that has spread throughout Georgia's brain, giving her a mere 3 weeks to live. Struggling to accept the diagnosis and the reality of her mounting medical bills, Georgia's life takes a dramatic turn. In the quiet of the night, a heart-heavy Georgia sits at her dining table, devoid of any appetite. She opens her big book of possibilities, a poignant reminder of the mouth-watering meals she crafted but never savored and the exotic destinations she yearned to explore but never ventured to. Eventually, her sadness subsides, and she accepts her harsh reality. Instead of spending her remaining days in the hospital, enduring grueling treatments for a slim chance of living longer, she resolves to indulge in all the experiences she had previously denied herself. With a newfound perspective, she decides to splurge her savings on fulfilling her dreams rather than on medical treatments. The following day, Georgia storms into Damien's office. Ignoring her presence, Damien continues his phone call, which provokes Georgia to shatter his phone with her shoe. Standing tall, she announces her resignation. Taken aback, Damien tries to convince her to stay by acknowledging her value to the store. But it's too late. Georgia has made up her mind, and she strides out of his office, leaving him in shock. Now merely an unemployed woman with a terminal illness and no romantic relationships in her life, Georgia goes to the bank to withdraw all her savings and the inheritance from her mother. She is ready to live her remaining days in opulence and books a flight to Europe, setting off on a journey to a luxurious 5-star hotel. On the plane, she finds her seating arrangement uncomfortable due to a fellow passenger. When a flight attendant fails to resolve the situation, a higher-ranking attendant offers her a seat in first class. Without a second thought, she purchases the upgrade, for money was no longer a constraint. In the comfort of first class, she enjoys fine wine and a hearty turkey meal, reveling in the ample personal space. Upon landing, Georgia, unwilling to wait for a taxi, opts for a helicopter ride directly to her hotel. Her grand entrance leaves the onlookers wondering about her identity, for the last time anyone arrived in a helicopter was a person of significant stature. Upon arrival, Georgia checks in at the reception, where her room isn't quite ready. The receptionist explains to Georgia that her room isn't ready because she arrived ahead of schedule. However, Georgia simply asks for any available room. The receptionist informs her that only the presidential suite is currently available, but it comes with a hefty price tag. Unfazed by the cost, Georgia pays for the room, which garners even more attention from the onlookers. As she waits for her room, Georgia recognizes Cragen and inquires about him from a passing staff member. She learns that Cragen habitually spends his Christmas holidays at the hotel, and notices that the woman accompanying him is not his wife but his secretary and mistress. Along with Cragen are other notable figures, including the mayor of Georgia's town and a congressman with his wife. After settling into her room, Georgia sets off on a shopping spree at an upscale boutique, choosing every outfit that catches her eye without a care for the price. Later that day, the hotel organizes a Christmas dinner for all its guests. Georgia attends, turning heads in a stunning red evening gown. The mayor seems particularly captivated by her, but Georgia is more interested in the menu, especially when she sees that it features dishes from her favorite chef, Chef Didier. Cragen and his group decide to approach Georgia to uncover the mystery of her identity. They encounter Georgia as she returns from the market and invite her to a charity gambling event. Initially hesitant due to fatigue and unfamiliarity with gambling, Georgia eventually agrees to join them. At the charity ball, Georgia finds herself standing at the gambling table with Cragen's group. Despite her initial intent of simply observing and enjoying the event, she is coaxed into placing a bet. Unaware of typical gambling protocols, she places a surprisingly large sum on the table. In a spirit of playful spontaneity, she places 3 consecutive bets on the number 17. To everyone's amazement, she wins all 3 rounds, attributing her winning streak to pure luck. However, her initial joy soon turns into resentment toward fate for granting her such luck only when she's nearing death. Mrs. Burns assists her in converting her gamble winnings into dollars, and Georgia is astonished to find out that she won an astounding $300,000. While they all converse at the table, the congressman inquires about Georgia's weekend plans, and everyone agrees to join her. Meanwhile, back in Louisiana, Sean grows increasingly worried about Georgia's prolonged absence. His concern eventually leads him to the store's clinic, where he learns of Georgia's dire health condition from the treating doctor. Subsequently, he visits her house and discovers from her nephew, Darius, about her European adventure and her feelings for him. Determined to reunite with Georgia, Sean quits his job at the store and books a flight ticket to Europe. As the days pass, Cragen's curiosity about Georgia morphs into jealousy and suspicion. Concerned that she might be a delegate from a rival company trying to steal his business partners, and uncomfortable with the growing closeness between the congressman, mayor, and Georgia, Cragen instructs his secretary to investigate Georgia further. With the New Year's arrival, another dinner is arranged by the hotel. At the table, Cragen attempts to expose Georgia, claiming that she is pretending to be wealthy, while in reality, she's just an employee from his store. Unruffled by Cragen's outburst, Georgia clarifies that she never misled anyone and that people made assumptions about her. She then proceeds to disclose her health condition, explaining that she decided to spend her savings on a luxurious lifestyle due to her diagnosis. After her revelation, she leaves the table, not wanting to cause further discomfort to the others. Disgusted by Cragen's antics and sympathetic towards Georgia, the mayor, the congressman, and his wife also leave the table. Soon after, his secretary leaves him as well. Dejected and alone, Cragen sits near a high window of the hotel, causing concern among the guests who fear he might be contemplating suicide. Meanwhile, Dr. Gupta, the doctor responsible for Georgia's CT scan, discovers a fault in the scan machine that incorrectly diagnosed Georgia. Realizing Georgia's dire need for this news, he races to her house, but finds only Darius there. Together, they send a fax to the hotel Georgia is staying in. Sean, who had just arrived at the hotel, makes his way to Georgia and confesses his feelings for her, culminating in a kiss. Shortly after, a hotel staff member hurries over with the content of the fax. The news of Georgia's misdiagnosis and her newfound lease on life is met with joyous celebration. Emboldened by her second chance at life, Georgia returns to Louisiana, ready to pursue her dreams. A few weeks later, she and Sean open their own restaurant, confronting the challenges of life side by side. In the end, they find their happily ever after.